All right, man. Welcome back to Make Your Mark NBA channel. It's your boy Mark here again. So I know it's been a little minute since I dropped a video here on my YouTube channel. As of recently, I've mainly been on TikTok. That's pretty much where I'll be posting all my content. But I did want to put a video up here on YouTube today just to give my opinion on who I do believe is going to advance out of the first round of this year's NBA playoffs. Now, we know the playoffs have already begun, and Game 1 has taken place for every series thus far. So, starting in the Eastern Conference, the 1-8 matchup between the Bucks and the Heat were able to steal Game 1. And, of course, the biggest reason for that is because Giannis went down in the first quarter. If Giannis had stayed in that game, I do believe they would have won. And hopefully he is going to be back for Game 2. I believe he will be. I don't think the injury was too serious, but it was serious enough for him to miss the remainder of that game. And if he's able to be back out there for Game 2, I think they will be able to win that game. And they might even split the next two games in Miami. And then I think Milwaukee will probably win Game 5 at home and then close it out in Game 6 in Miami, in my opinion. We know that Miami's not going to go down without a fight. Of course, they're one of the best coached teams in the league, and their leader, their best player, Jimmy Butler, is a dog. So his teammates are going to follow after him, and they're going to fight hard each game. But Milwaukee's going to be a little bit too much for them. They have the best player in the series, and he has enough assistance around him to augment, what he brings to the table as well for them to be able to get the job done. Now, the 2-7 matchup between Boston and Atlanta, as you can see, Game 1 was a blowout victory. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if Atlanta gets swept in this series. That's how I see it. I think Boston is just too much of a match for them. They don't really have the pieces on their team to really equal out to them at all. I think Boston will pretty much thoroughly dominate this series. Maybe Atlanta could steal one game at home, but most likely, in my opinion, I think Boston will sweep Atlanta in this series. It's not really an in-depth breakdown that is really needed to explain why. I mean, Boston is just a better overall team, offensively, defensively, even better coached as well. They're, not really much of a matchup in them to me. The 3-6 matchup between Philly and Brooklyn, I definitely got Philly winning. Of course, Philly took Game 1. They dominated for the most part. But I wouldn't be surprised if if Brooklyn gave them, some competition. Like, they could win a game. Maybe they could win 2 games, but I think they could definitely win a game. But Philly is going to win this series, though. All right, with Embiid and Harden out there, all they got to do is really show up. Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, etc. They got to show up. Brooklyn is a nice young team. What they were able to get back for KD and Kyrie Irving, I broke this down in the video I made about that trade early in the season. They made out well with Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson. And, of course, they were able to get Spencer Dinwiddie back on the squad as well. They have a pretty good defensive big man in Nick Claxton. So they're a nice young team, but it's not going to be enough to overthrow Philly, though. Now, the 4-5 matchup between the Cavs and the Knicks, like most 4-5 matchups each year, or more often than not, is going to be the most competitive matchup in the first round. I think it's going to be a very entertaining series. The Knicks were able to steal Game 1. I had the Cavs beating them in 6. Now that the Knicks stole Game 1, I'm not going to really say that changes too much, but it could be a 6 or 7 game series in my opinion. The difference to me between these two teams is not really much on offense. I think on offense they're pretty much on the same level, but the separation is on defense. The Cavs have a better defense than the Knicks, and that's what gives them the advantage to me. But good win for the Knicks in Game 1. They were able to steal Game 1 on the road. Cleveland will bounce back and win Game 2. I think they'll probably split it in New York. Cleveland will win Game 5. Possibly the Knicks can win Game 6. And if they do, Cleveland will win Game 7. But I think Cleveland might close them out in Game 6. But we'll see. Now, moving over to the West, that 1-8 matchup between Denver and Minnesota. I actually thought before this series got started, that this series would be pretty competitive. Maybe 6 or 7 games. Now, of course, Game 1 was a blowout. Denver definitely handled business. And even after Jokic had fouled out, they still were able to hold it down. And, of course, they were blowing them out by so much at that point, though. It really wasn't a way that I think Minnesota was going to be able to come back either way. But regardless, though, Denver handled their business overall as a team. So we'll see how Minnesota can bounce back going forward. It is only game one. Things can change game to game throughout the course of these different series. But I like what Minnesota has. I like what they can bring to the table offensively with Karl-Anthony Towns and, of course, Anthony Edwards. Hopefully he's aggressive in this series. I did not like what I saw from him against the Lakers in that play-in game where they should have won if he would have stepped up. But either way, what they're capable of doing on the court, they can pose matchup problems for Denver. And, of course, they have a veteran point guard like Mike Conley out there who can definitely contribute. And they have one of the better defensive big men in the league in Rudy Gobert, even though he is going to have his work cut out for him guarding Jokic, just like everybody does. But if there's somebody out there that could, give him a little bit of trouble, a little bit of pushback, Gobert could possibly do that, even though we've seen Jokic thoroughly dominate him in some recent matchups. I will say that. But, Gobert has been one of the better defensive centers in the league for the past 4 or 5 years. And he can definitely bounce back and, redeem himself, you could say, against Jokic and do his best to possibly contain him to a degree. That's what I'll say about that. So I do think Denver will win the next game at home as well. Now, when Minnesota goes home, I want to see how they bounce back game 2 first, just to see how they respond. And even if they don't win, just to see how close the game is. And then I'll kind of go from there to see how I feel about what this series will end up looking like. For now, I'm going to say 6 games in favor of Denver. Now, that 2-7 matchup between the Grizzlies and the Lakers, man. Before this series started, I was leaning towards the Lakers. We have to see what's going to happen with Ja Morant, if he's going to miss game 2 or not. They definitely needed him down the stretch of game 1. The last 2 minutes of that game, the Lakers just pulled away so quickly from them. And they definitely got major contribution from, what's the dude name? Rui Hachimura, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. And then, of course, Austin Reeves went ham in the fourth quarter as well. And they're going to need Ja Morant back game 2. Whether or not he can play or not, we'll see. If he cannot play, honestly, it might just be over for the Grizzlies. Being down 2-0 at home, going back on the road against LA, not going to be good for them, obviously. So hopefully he can get back game 2. I hope he can, because I want to see a competitive series between the Grizzlies and the Lakers. Before this series, as I stated already, I had the Lakers winning. However, I would not have been surprised if it went either way. But they needed him down the stretch of game 1, and they need him to come back game 2 for this to still be a competitive series. So I'm definitely sticking with the Lakers for now still, of course. And how far this series will go is strictly depending on the status of Ja Morant, if he can return in time. If he doesn't, they might literally get swept. If he does, I would say the Lakers probably in 6. Now, the 3-6 matchup between the Kings and the Warriors, before this series started, I definitely had the Warriors winning. I think most people did. I was not just completely counting the Kings out, but I wasn't able to really envision in my mind the Kings being able to pull off a victory over the Warriors. They're just too inexperienced for me. And I know the Warriors have had their ups and downs this year, even with, of course, Steph got injured, but even with Steph out there, everybody knows the Warriors struggled on the road this year. But the Warriors are they're too experienced for them to get bounced in the first round by this Sacramento Kings team. That was a great game 1 between these two teams, man. Very entertaining game, went back and forth, came all the way down to the wire. I enjoyed every bit of it. And that backcourt of De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk, they play out of their minds, and they outplayed Steph and Klay. Now, how many games is that going to happen, though, going forward? I have the Warriors winning in 6. And to be honest with you, I would not be surprised if the Warriors were able to win the next 4 games in a row. I'm not saying they're going to. That's why I'm saying 6 for now. We know the Warriors going forward are going to make their adjustments. They have that championship pedigree, and I do believe they're going to advance past the first round. Now, going forward from there, I'm not sure. Of course, I'm going to talk more about the second round matchups when we know what their matchups are going to be. But if the Warriors face the Lakers in the next round, that's going to be a tough matchup for them, man. Believe me, that probably is going to be a 7-game series, and I wouldn't be surprised if it goes either way. But we'll talk more about that when it happens. So the 4 versus 5 matchup between the Suns and the Clippers. So these two teams right here, in my opinion, I believe that whoever wins this series, in my opinion, could possibly come out the Western Conference. Now, we know the Clippers don't have Paul George. I did pick the Suns to win this series, obviously, for that reason. I still thought that the Clippers could be pretty competitive even without Paul George because of how deep they are. The Clippers have a very deep roster. They have a lot of pieces on that team. I didn't think it was going to be enough to get them past Phoenix, but I thought it was enough to, make it a competitive series. I'm going to say this, man. If the Clippers can find a way to get to game 5 and let's say they're down 3-2 or something like that, but if they can stall it out enough to be able to get Paul George back in this series, then I can see them possibly winning. I'm not going to say I can really see them winning without him, but I wouldn't be shocked either at this point. And I know it was only game 1 the other day, and the Clippers were able to steal that game in Phoenix. But, that dude Kawhi Leonard, man, when he's fully healthy, especially come playoff time, he's arguably the best player in the league, man. Like, I really believe that. And, the contribution that he got from the rest of his team, they held it down. Russell Westbrook didn't play that well offensively, but he sure as hell made up for it on the defensive end. All right. So, for now, I'm going to say the Suns. It's hard to say, man. It depends. Like I said, before this series, I would have said the Suns in 6. If they can get to game 6, the Clippers, like I said, and Paul George is able to get back out there, let's say Paul George is ready to go, I definitely think it will go to 7. I might pick the Clippers to win. And like I said already, I might even not pick the Clippers to win, but I would not be surprised at all if the Clippers possibly pulled off a victory against Phoenix, even without Paul George. It's going to be hard fought. Don't get it twisted. But it can happen. That's how I see it. That's just me. So that's my analysis for these first round matchups. I'm not going to go too far ahead into the next rounds because I do want to see how these first round matchups play out and who comes out victorious before I give my analysis on what's coming up next. But I wanted to drop a video for y'all. Like I said, I ain't been on here for a little minute. I think I did drop like a little short recently, but I want to get back on and get more consistent with keeping up with my YouTube channel. I've been so focusing on TikTok. And for you guys who be on TikTok a lot, man, my name on there is Make Your Mark with 5 underscores. I post on there very frequently, so check me out on there. But you guys let me know what you think about this video. Give me your feedback. Leave your comments. Hit the like button. Share the video. And if you're new to the channel and you enjoyed the content, hit the subscribe button. And we got more videos coming just like this. So I appreciate all the love and support I've been getting thus far. All praise be to the Most High. Thank you again.